Hello, Dolphins fans. This has been a turbulent week, and you probably already know why. The team has not performed well this season, and we need to talk about it. Before you continue, hit the like button if you want to see a different Miami Dolphins next year. If possible, write something like this: the Miami Dolphins need change. Yes, my friends, things need to change urgently. Starting with GM Chris Greer, my patience with him is almost over. The Miami Dolphins offense under head coach Mike Mcdaniel has shown troubling signs for some time that opposing defenses may have figured out the system, a realization that became painfully evident in the recent loss to the Houston Texans. Despite multiple opportunities to tie or win the game, the Dolphins have faltered in critical moments, plagued by offensive line struggles, lack of adjustments, and questionable execution from quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Understandably frustrated fans are wondering, has McDaniel's once explosive offense hit a wall? The film tells the full story. From the beginning, the offensive line set the tone for disaster. On one particular play that stood out, Tua was forced to roll out and run to the line of scrimmage, resulting in what was technically a sack. The problem? The Texans sent a lot of pressure, and Miami's offensive line failed miserably to pick it up. Liam Eichenberg, already under heavy scrutiny, seemed unsure of who to block, while Cameron had a poor performance on the right side. That breakdown left free rushers swarming Tua, forcing him to run away instead of going through his reads. Offensive linemen Aaron Brewer and Patrick Paul had some bright spots, but the unit as a whole fell apart when it mattered most. Defensively, there were moments of hope, but also missed opportunities. A heartbreaking example came on a 2nd and 5 play where Houston ran an end around. Jevon Holland, typically known for his elite instincts and tackling, seemed hesitant and allowed the ball carrier to juke him out of position. The Jevon Holland from last year would have intercepted that play in the backfield for a loss. Instead, Houston converted the opportunity and built momentum, settling for a field goal to take an early lead. The problems only got worse for Miami when the offense took over again. On a critical 3rd and 2, Tua rolled out to his left, normally a position of comfort for the quarterback, who has excelled on similar plays in the past. However, this time, under instant pressure from Cameron, Tua delivered an uncharacteristically bad pass into the dirt. It was clear at this point that the offensive line was losing the battle, with immediate pressure disrupting Miami's ability to establish rhythm or execute key throws. The issues on the line weren't isolated to pass protection. They also severely impacted the Dolphins' short yardage running game. On plays where Miami needed just a yard or two, defenders consistently pushed the offensive line backward, blowing up running lanes before they could develop. The Texans, meanwhile, appeared to execute a defensive blueprint similar to what the 49ers and Chargers did in 2022. Houston's defense keyed in on Miami's favorite route combinations, particularly the seams and crossing patterns that have been the bread and butter of McDaniel's system. They dropped safeties into key areas, effectively clogging up passing windows and forcing Tua to rely on checkdowns or hurried throws. One sequence perfectly illustrated this adjustment. Miami faked a screen pass to draw the defense one way but still failed to gain any yardage because Houston's linebackers and secondary reacted immediately. The struggles culminated in a brutal sequence involving multiple sacks, penalties, and turnovers. On one play, Miami had a holding call, a sack, and a false start, pushing the offense into an impossible 1st and 15 situation. Cameron was a glaring liability, lunging at defensive ends and getting beat with embarrassing ease. When Tua did find a window to throw, the pass protection collapsed so quickly that he was either forced to rush his reads or take off under duress. As the game wore on, the frustration mounted. Houston baited Tua into an interception on a 2nd and 6 play where the Dolphins tried to attack a soft zone defense. Whether it was miscommunication on the route or simply a bad decision, the throw resulted in an easy pick for the Texans. Even when Miami's offense had opportunities to bounce back, unforced errors and lack of execution continued to haunt them. A deep shot to Tyreek Hill in the final moments should have been a touchdown, but the ball was underthrown, forcing Hill to come back for it. The result? An interception, another example of how the Dolphins failed to capitalize on big play opportunities. One positive takeaway came on the defensive side of the ball, where players like Zach Sealer and Bradley Chubb showed incredible motor and effort. Chubb's relentless pursuit of Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud resulted in a highlight-worthy sack, proving that even when the team struggles, certain players continue to give their all. Similarly, Kader Koa flashed his elite open field tackling skills on a key play, a reminder of why he remains a valuable asset in Miami's secondary. But those few bright spots weren't enough to erase the glaring issues facing this team. Mike McDaniel, known for his creative play calling and offensive genius, now faces a daunting challenge. The Texans, and other recent opponents, seem to have cracked the code. Defenses are reading the Dolphins' tendencies, jumping on screen passes, clogging up short and intermediate routes, and exposing the offensive line. The bigger concern? Miami's inability to adjust mid-game. Whether it's Tua missing open reads or McDaniel failing to tweak the game plan, the offense remains stuck in neutral when faced with a well-prepared defense. This loss raises serious questions as the season winds down. Can Mike McDaniel evolve his system and make the adjustments needed to keep defenses guessing? Can the offensive line find stability, or will their struggles continue to sabotage Miami's playoff hopes? And perhaps most importantly, how much blame does Tua deserve? While he certainly had a rough outing, it's hard to overlook the protection issues and the predictable play calling that left him in impossible situations. Dolphins fans, the film doesn't lie. This was a brutal game, with mistakes at every level of the offense. From Liam Eichenberg's poor blocking to Tua's missed opportunities and McDaniel's refusal to adapt, this loss was a collective failure. But what do you think? Are defenses catching up to McDaniel's offense? Is the offensive line the real issue, or does Tua share more of the blame? Let me know your thoughts, because if this team doesn't fix these problems quickly, the season could slip away. The second half of this game brought even more frustration for the Miami Dolphins and their fans, as the offense failed to capitalize on any momentum, and Houston's defense continued to dictate the tempo. Right out of the gate, Miami's opening drive of the second half provided a microcosm of everything that has been going wrong for this team. It started with a promising 8-yard gain to Jalen Waddle on a quick-out route, a play that looked like it could jumpstart the offense. However, on the very next snap, the offensive line completely imploded. Patrick Paul was overwhelmed on the left side, missing his block entirely and allowing the Texans' defensive end to collapse the pocket in a split second. Tua, left with no time to set his feet, had to throw the ball away, leading to a 3rd and 2. Then, the Dolphins tried to go back to the run game, but once again, the Texans' defensive front blew up the play. Liam Eichenberg was pushed 3 yards into the backfield, completely disrupting Raheem Mostert's running lane and forcing Miami to punt. The Dolphins' inability to establish the run game was one of the most glaring issues in this loss. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane combined for fewer than 60 total yards, averaging well under 3 yards per carry. Houston's defensive front won the battle in the trenches all night, consistently penetrating the line of scrimmage and stuffing runs before they could develop. What's especially concerning is how predictable Miami's rushing attack has become. On several early down plays, Houston seemed to know exactly where the ball was going, sending linebackers downhill to clog the gaps. This forced Mike McDaniel to abandon the run far earlier than he would have liked, making the Dolphins' offense completely one-dimensional. That predictability carried over to the passing game as well. Houston's defensive backs were sitting on Miami's favorite routes, especially the short crossers and quick outs that have been staples of McDaniel's offense. Tua Tagovailoa, for all his talent and precision, seemed hesitant to attack downfield, opting for checkdowns that rarely moved the chains. On one particularly frustrating series, Miami faced a 2nd and 10 deep in their own territory.